Hello again. Welcome back to Mapping Hour. We're in episode 15. Remember, you'll need a login to practice any of these activities that you're seeing. Last time, we were working with dashboards. And part of the magic of dashboards is that it's not just a picture. You can look at it and there's a lot of data in front of you in a dashboard. But the real magic of it is that it's interactive. What have we got today? We're going to be working with Business Analyst and Community Analyst. Business Analyst is a comprehensive tool. It's part of that whole framework of ArcGIS Online. But it's also a tool that somebody can use without knowing about the whole ArcGIS platform. Business Analyst, Community Analyst, they look alike, work alike. Business Analyst has a desktop version as well and a mobile app. And because it has these other elements, we're going to look at this from the Business Analyst side. It makes mapping and analysis easy. And there's a lot of data that is embedded within it. It allows you to get into infographics and tapestry segmentation, and you engage in the application from sort of a project mindset. Both business analyst and community analyst are in the school bundle going forward. Where we ended up in episode 14, one of the elements was this dashboard, the impact planner. Again, if you look really close, right near the top, it says one of 3,200. How could somebody make 3,200 different dashboards? One of the pieces of magic of GIS is its ability to engage data from everywhere. All different kinds of formats of data, all different sources of data. GIS can bring it in and integrate it. Business analyst data working with the dashboard allows you to have a highly interactive set of dashboards all inside of one little dashboard. This is a perfect example of how GIS can bring in data from lots of different sources. We're going to start off today with Kylie. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Kylie, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie. So what you're looking at right now is actually the My Content view in ArcGIS Online. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to show you one way to start this tool. So in ArcGIS Online, while you're logged in, as you can see up here in the corner, there's this little thing, the app switcher. So when I click on that and open it, I can see all kinds of applications that I have access to. Now, this isn't every application I have access to. Some could be hidden. Some may not show here by default, need to be added. There's some different settings that are coming into play. But in general, the things I want to work with that have web apps are here. Now, I say web apps because you'll notice some apps that I've even shown before, like Collector, aren't here. And that was because it was a mobile-only application. So just something to keep in mind. This isn't every app you have, but it's a lot of them. And Business Analyst is one of the ones that we can get to here. Community Analyst is as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Business Analyst. And this is a different app, and you can see it spinning up and loading. This is the home experience of Business Analyst. And I'm going to take a minute here and orient you with it. So when I think of Business Analyst, I think of it like Charlie was saying, it's not really for that GIS person. And it's a data exploration tool, but we also saw Living Atlas, right? So that was another set of data that was provided. I think of Business Analyst as like Living Atlas and more. So it's going to come with a lot of that data that we did see in Living Atlas, but plus tons of other rich data sets. So one thing that's also unique about Business Analyst in the ArcGIS suite of applications is it's done a really good job of integrating some help and videos for you and guided tours. So as a new user to it or someone who doesn't use it daily, I find these really valuable. And in fact, you can see one right here on the home. There's a little video you can click and just right away watch a quick clip about what you're doing and how this application works. Now you can create a new project, which is, like Charlie mentioned, it's kind of just your workspace in here. It's going to hold your maps, your layers, your sites, some different information that you're working with, and kind of keep it collected together. So if there were different research projects I was doing, I may want a different project for each of them to keep that information kind of contained. But I already have one, so I'm going to go ahead and open the one that's there. So we come in, it's pretty similar. I'm kind of comfortable here. It's a map. I can pan it, I can zoom it. We're pretty good right now. In Business Analyst, though, we have some different looking things over here, and we also have some different stuff up here. You've heard us talk before about applications that are autosave or not autosave and making sure you click save. Well, Business Analyst is one where you get to choose. I like things to autosave. Another thing you'll see here is this flag in USA. Well, that's going to go to the fact that we have a vast amount of data here. So we actually have data for all kinds of different countries. And as you scroll here, you can just see quite the range. So what this does is it lets you pick the area that you're interested in, just as part of making sure you're finding the right data. I'm going to leave it set to the USA. The first thing I want to do in here with you guys is just start creating a map. One of the things to look at up here is that you have all these different tabs of things you can do. Okay, so in this app, I can add data, I can create a map, I can define areas, I can do analysis, I can share this. Add data in here is a little bit different than when you were in ArcGIS Online world. Adding data is adding other data. It's not the data that's enabled through Business Analyst. So I'm going to jump on in and create a map. All right, so there's different choices of types of maps I can do. And right now, I'm just going to start simple. I'm going to create a color-coded map where we can pick a variable and we can see it on the map. So I choose that option, and over here, I'm getting some steps, right? Okay, great. First thing I do, choose what variable I'm going to map. Now, if this was in my way or I was in the wrong extent, I can go ahead and close it and bring it back with those little arrows, just if I need more map real estate. Wow, population, income, households, health. Okay, I want to browse all variables just because there is such a wide range. I want you guys to actually see some of the scope of this data. You can see all kinds of categories in here, right? We have spending, we have behaviors, we've got education, we've got health, lots of crime. Okay, there's Tapestry, we've heard that a little bit. All right, being that most of you are interested in education, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in there to pick a variable to look at now. All right, this is our data browser. So this is an experience where we can find the data we want. It's another way of searching, right? So we can search in this category that we've picked here. It's also highlighted the most popular things people tend to look at here and given us some categories of other things we may want to explore. I'll go ahead and dive into school enrollment, and you can see quite a variety of information here. For today, I'm going to look at people enrolled in school in the US. Now, I can choose if I want to look at these by the raw number or percentage based. And I'm going to go ahead and choose percentage because when I'm putting colors on a map, sometimes I get distracted by raw numbers and start comparing things I shouldn't. And I'll speak to that in a minute. So I want to go ahead with the percentage, and I'm just going to click right on this entry to get it added to my map. Okay, great. So this is similar than what you might have done in Living Atlas, right? I mentioned a little bit about being careful with raw numbers. So right now I can see states, and I'm seeing percentages of population enrolled in school. If I had picked the raw number, I would see a little bit different map because the raw number of people enrolled in school in California would probably be greater than the raw number of people enrolled in school in Utah. And that's because California has a bigger population. There's more people in general that could be going to school. So that's kind of why I went with percentages today. If you think about it, a wise Charlie once told me that it's not the square miles that go to school. It's the individuals, right? And so we have to really think about the fact that it's the people, and it's not about the size or the total of that area. It's about those individuals. So that's why I think percentage helps me look at it a little bit better. All right, some other things I can do in here. Well, let's just play. All right, I can zoom in, and I get, oh, my colors are different. Now I'm seeing congressional districts. And there's a couple ways I can actually play with what level of data I'm seeing. Now, this is important, okay? When you work with Business Analyst Online, one of the really cool things you can do is over here on the side. I can share this map to ArcGIS. I can take this data, and I can do my research on the data in here and do my data exploration and then go back to ArcGIS Online to create the map that I need, right? Because we're talking about the tool for the job. This is my data exploration tool. And then I can go use my mapping tool. Well, when I click Share Map to ArcGIS, it's going to use this level of data because it's what I have on screen now. But when I'm zooming, maybe I want not state level, but a different level, but I need this extent of the map. So the extent is also triggering what's shared. So I have these two things. I need to get the right extent, and I also need to get the right granularity to my data. Okay, so there's some tools in here to help you do that are pretty important to understand. I can zoom in, and I can find the level I want, or I can use this little slider over here. Look, in ArcGIS Online, I have a slider, but in here, my slider even lets me pick based on that granularity of data that I might be interested in. And perhaps I want county level data. Great, so it's going to help me find it. Now, as I zoom, this is still going to be changing, but I may not want it to because, as I mentioned, I care about my granularity of data, and I also care about the extent of my data. So, come on over here. We're going to explore this panel a little bit. Now that I've added data, you can see, similar to like the legend, right? I can see what the colors mean, but I do even have some tools right in line here. So there's this little lock icon and another dropdown. Oh, similar to those the zoom levels I saw over here with the slider, right? But it's over here in the panel. And what's really key here is this lock. When I click that lock, it's now saying, stay at counties. I care about counties. And now when I zoom out to get the right extent of my map, even if I zoom very far out, I'm staying with counties, right? So before you saw this change to state, not anymore. I've told it what I want it to be. There's another tool over here that I find very important, and that is watch these numbers. Right now, dark red means 35 to 52, roughly. And as I zoom in, I have a bit different data on screen, and it's actually changed the colors of some of my polygons. I'm not seeing the same information presented in the same way. Now it's 35 to 44. Well, I don't like that because I find it disorienting. Now, you saw this yesterday when we looked at dashboards, right? We could take the scale on our chart that Joseph was setting up and tell it, no, I know you can be helpful, and I know you can reset yourself to best reflect the data currently in my view, but I don't always want a new context. I may want to remember where I was starting and the full range available to me. So what I can do is I can down here, I can lock those ranges while panning. Okay, so now what I have is this number is 35 or greater. Red now means the same thing. So when we've done this, we've locked the ranges while panning. So as I move the map, it's not going to reevaluate for me, even though it's pulling in more and different data. It's going to keep that same range. There is a lot of data on the screen, and we've talked about filtering data in the past, and that's another thing that you can do right here in these tools. But maybe I want to play with my data. So perhaps we've talked about filtering before. We could go in and we can see the different data on our screen and the range that it covers. And maybe I want to focus on some of these lower enrollment areas, right? And I can do that. I can move this. Wow, look how fast and responsive that is. You see the colors just coming right in and out as I move this slider. All right. Now, like in ArcGIS Online, you can come in here and you can play with the colors and do some styling. But now I'm going to explore my data a bit more. So I've put some data into the map. All right, let's pick a county. I'll go ahead with the county that Redlands is located in, and we can click on it. And when I do that, I'm seeing some information. Okay, I'm seeing this, the data that I picked, right? This school enrollment number. But there's a lot more in here. And infographics, okay, I saw this word before, right? I'm going to go ahead and click that because infographics are a really powerful tool. A demographic summary, wait. So I was just looking at a school enrollment number, and I picked a county, and I'm getting a demographic summary. Now, I didn't add all this data to the map. Business Analyst is smart. It says, you care about this county and you want to see some information about it. Well, I'm not just going to use the information you've explicitly put in your map. I'm going to use the information I know really enlightens that subject, right? That really will bring that county to life when looking at a demographic summary. Now, you may not have noticed, but I actually chose demographic summary when doing this. So I'm going to go up here, and I could choose something else. So there are tons of different infographics that we can do. We could also create a custom one. Now, given the scenario that we're in right now, where we're all dealing with staying at home and being smart about coronavirus and trying to take care of our counties, I can even look at a graphic about coronavirus. You remember what Charlie was showing earlier in that dashboard? Does this look a little bit familiar? What about, you may not have noticed in his dashboard, but we have a blue bar. Okay, so you're starting to see, right, how this was added to the dashboard, and the power coming from it was actually this Business Analyst app and the infographics that it can generate. Now, there's one last thing I do want to show. I'm going to go ahead and close the infographic, and that's there's a little bit of working with this map that can be different. And that is, maybe I would like to look at multiple places. Now, I have this select tool over here, and I can click on this arrow. And now, when I come on my map, what used to pan was when I'd click and move the mouse, right? Well, now, when I click it, I'm drawing boxes. Okay, so it can be easy to get a little bit confused in here about the navigation because there are different modes almost of what you're doing with the map. So when I've done that, now I've created a set of pop-ups, right, where I can explore a number of counties. I can go into infographics like I just did, and it's generating that same information. It takes a little bit longer because there's more. And look, my view is different, and I'm seeing them all. I can kind of compare them together. So that's really powerful. But the problem is when I forget, and now I'm trying to pan my map. Geez. Okay, so just remember, on the tools over here, that select tool, when you have that arrow, that's when you'll get in this mode when it's harder to move the map. If you want to move the map, come up to the hand, get back on that hand, and then again, you'll be able to use that. And while you could click a single county and see information, clicking and holding, again, lets me move my map. So it's just a quick look into this app. And I think Tom has some stuff he can show us to take us a bit further with Business Analyst.
Thanks, Kylie. That was great. All right, thanks, Kylie. So I want to take a few minutes and show you a different part of Business Analyst online called the Smart Map Search. This tool is really interesting because it allows us to use criteria or filters to identify common places of geography or areas, in this case in the US, that share some similar attribute. So I've already started preloading one of my Smart Map searches, and I've got 3 different sets of data in here right now, although only one is actually turned on. And you can see at the checkbox at the top here where it is pulling HH, your head of household, and this is income below poverty. So I've got a slider bar here on either side of this data set, and as I slide it, my percentages change. And the map changes. You can tell that if, for example, we wanted to see only counties that have, let's say, roughly 15% or more of households in poverty, we can make that slider adjust to the right, and it shifts our percentage to 15%. And then, of course, it's still displaying counties with even higher levels of poverty. So we can use these filters to really, in this case, identify some of the more impoverished counties in the country. And I'm slowly moving my slider. I'm trying to tweak my map so I see some reference points that I'm expecting to see. So this is one variable now that we can use to identify counties that have a high percentage of households in poverty. I can slide it around, and much like Kylie showed you a moment ago, I can also click on a county that's been selected, And I get that same pop-up that she was examining where we can look at infographics and reports and do comparisons and all kinds of neat analytical things. So that's one data layer. That's households below the poverty line. So the really cool thing about smart map searching is we can actually use more than one data at a time. So in this case, I've actually got 3, and I'm going to turn on the second one now. The second one now is household with at least one person with a federally identified disability. So again, I've got a slider here that's enabled, and on the far left, I think it goes down to, it looks like a little over 6%, or on the high side, a little over 60%. So that would mean on the left side of my slider, about 6% of the households in that county have a person with a designated disability. So for example, if I wanted to slide this up to see even a higher percentage of households or counties with households that have one or more persons with disabilities, I can slide this up. And part of what we're starting to build here, if you haven't decided already, is really a social vulnerability map. So we're taking things like income and disability, and here in a moment, transportation, to really try to paint a picture of counties with extremely high social vulnerabilities. And this can be used for a number of things. Let's turn on transportation for a moment. And what we're looking at here is 2019 transportation. And this is actually looking at the amount of money spent on average for either personal or public transportation. So if a family is socially vulnerable, part of that means that they're going to have reduced mobility. And part of that reduced mobility probably means that they're not spending as much money on transportation. So if we open up our criteria here, we'll see that the number of counties grow, but what we're really looking at are families who can spend relatively little on transportation. And what we should end up with is a national map, as I pan it, of counties that have high percentages of socially vulnerable populations. Okay. Now, as Kylie noted before, my units of geography I've locked to the county level. You can tell this right up here. I could disable that, or rather I could change it at least to the state level or congressional districts. In this case, for the purposes of recognizability, we'll just stay with counties. I'll pan over here to the East Coast, and Business Analyst Online is regenerating more of those polygons for us to indicate those counties that are in the highest levels of social vulnerability. So you can do this too, or something like it, by generating your own smart map search. So smart map searching is available under Create Maps, and it's the second box here. It tells you a bit about smart map search. If we click on it, it's actually going to pop this pane that I've already got open. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at some other aspects of this. So the same data categories that Kylie was looking at a few minutes ago are also available to you under Smart Map Search. There are dozens of categories and thousands of different data to choose from. And again, you don't have to stick with just one. You can stack them on top of each other to really create that map that identifies locations that you're interested in. In addition, as you're going through those data sets or categories, you can find data sets that you find very interesting, and you can make them a favorite. So in this case, for example, I added 2019 total population as a favorite, mostly because it's one of those data sets that everybody can use, and it's often used in projects. So what I can do here, again, as before, my data layer is turned on, and right now we're looking at total population for the entire country, and we've got the total range. So I am looking at total numbers. So if I want to slide my range to the right, what I should end up with is counties that have only the highest population levels. One of them that popped up is probably Cook County, Chicago. We'll click on it and retrieve a little bit of information about it. Yeah, so now we can see the value of that particular field, and it's over 5 million. Okay, so let's take a look at one other thing beyond our categories of data and our favorites. Let's take a look at some of our saved lists. So when you build out one of these lists and maybe you have 2, 3, 4, 5 different sets of data and you set the filters just the way you want them, you can save that much like a recipe. And when you save it, it will later appear for you in these saved lists. And we've already looked a little bit at social vulnerability. So maybe what we can look at here is really healthcare, or rather health vulnerability. So I've pre-built this recipe and I've clicked on it and it's loading it up. Now this time I've got 5 data layers in here. And you'll notice that I have already begun sliding my filters around to really get at the highest levels of vulnerability, health vulnerability. So my first data set that I've added is prescription drug use for diabetes. So these are folks that are using insulin-based drugs. That data is in Business Analyst Online. My second set of data is visited doctor in the last 12 months, and this is specific to cardiologists. So this starts to get at things like heart disease. And my third set is senior population, and this is actually 65 and older, and you'll notice it's not turned on right now. And then my fourth set is use prescription drugs for asthma. And my fifth and final data set is actually the amount of money spent on convalescents or nursing homes. So this doesn't have to apply to a particular health vulnerability, but it's some of the broad general factors that the CDC has identified as health vulnerabilities. So with all these turned on, well, at least with 4 of the 5 layers turned on, we now see a new map with counties that are likely at higher risks for being vulnerable to certain healthcare crises. Anything from pandemics to the flu to probably even the common cold. So if I were to design an education program, for example, I might target these counties with different literature and educational materials to help make residents in these counties aware that they might take extra precautions or consider doing extra things to help prevent illness. Okay. So in a nutshell, this is smart map searching. And I would encourage you to give it a try. It's a very powerful tool, and I think I'll send it back over to our next presenter.
And that's Joseph.
Wow, that was incredible, Tom. Thanks so much. You're seeing Business Analyst right here on my screen as well. I'm going to build on what my colleagues have talked about and extend it just a little bit, but you'll see some familiar things and you'll see some new things here in this segment. One of my favorite ways to teach with this tool is to present short scenarios, sort of like geo-inquiries, where you're presenting a problem to solve, an issue to grapple with. Tom touched on this a little bit at the end of his presentation, where he talked about, I'm going to design a program to address a certain health issue. Those are the kinds of things that I love teaching with this tool. They range from supply chain management. What goes into my phone? How do I get it out of the ground or manufacture it? How do I distribute it? Where do I find my customers for a phone or another good or a service? Risk assessment. Okay, what counties are more at risk from certain natural hazards? And let's say I'm working for an insurance company, I have to set rates. But one of my favorites, and I think even more useful than those, I oftentimes use a optimal site location for a good or a service in a community. You and I love having students grapple with our natural world, watersheds, ecoregions, etc. Remember what Kylie was saying at the beginning. This set of tools has data associated with it, and you saw both Tom and Kylie give demonstrations about that. The data that's in here is really in 3 categories. Business locations. Let's think about that, expand that in a moment. Demographic information, population, housing, income, etc. And also, and this is one of the reasons why we love using this tool, is you have this consumer preference or behavior kinds of things in it. Now, I love having students thinking about, and this has been threading throughout our mapping our presentations, and that is, where does the data come from? So, okay, many countries have a census. If they don't, there are estimates that the United Nations and other organizations provide. But what about that consumer preference data? I like throwing it out there to the students to have them think about, who buys diet iced tea? Who buys lottery tickets? Who bicycles to work? Who goes to the symphony, etc. And, kind of let them talk about that for a bit, but they usually come back with credit card information. So yes, that is in part how we obtain this. We actually buy this information from companies that mine the data from credit card purchases. Now, another teachable moment in this is all aggregated information, right? You saw Tom and Kylie working with congressional districts, census tracts, block groups. It's aggregated. So I can't find out what you purchase or buy on a regular basis, and you can't determine what I buy. It's all aggregated. So that's another nice teachable moment on this. So we're going to start with a situation where, like I was saying, we're going to grapple with citing a certain kind of business. And as Kylie mentioned, you've got different countries. Now, remember what I was saying a moment ago. You've got different levels of geography. So if you're working in Australia, you're going to get enumeration areas and not census tracts, etc. I've taught with this tool in many places around the world. And yes, while you cannot get neighborhood preferences in North Korea, depending on the country, right, you're going to have different kinds of information available. But nevertheless, a true wealth of information at your fingertips. And I've got another thing to share, and that is you want to focus oftentimes a scenario in a location, right? Remember, we're slinging around all this data on the web. So depending on if you've got a whole classroom of students or right now you've got them all remote, you got to be sensitive to bandwidth. So that's another thing that's going to thread throughout the presentation here. So I'm going to focus on one of my favorite places, Kansas City. I'm going to Kansas City. And the scenario is as follows. I'm going to cite the optimal location for a pet sitting kennel service. Okay, so I've got a couple of variables. Now, depending on the age of students that you're working with, you know as well as I do that for educational purposes, more is not always better, right? Focus on a couple of variables. And so at the end of all these lessons, I usually ask the students, okay, if you were really doing this in a business setting, what other variable would you want to add that we didn't have time to do? And so that sparks some nice conversation. So building on what my colleagues have already gone through with you all on, I'm going to go ahead and create maps. I'm going to make a color-coded map, and I'm going to search on travel. Now, for many years, without boring you folks to tears, my colleagues and I would say, wouldn't it be great if we had like a whole database of stuff we can pick from? And it's sort of like the Amazon experience where you get this, as you saw with Tom, with the smart map search, these little shopping baskets. Wow, well now that's exactly what you have now, folks. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, more is not always better. I'm going to say, for my pet sitting service, if people travel, maybe they would be more inclined when they go on their trip and they don't take their pet to house their pet at my kennel, okay? So I'm going to look at took 3 or more round trips by plane. Remember what Kylie was saying, I can do raw numbers? Don't want that. I'm going to go to index. Index, the USA, because we're looking at USA here, is 100. And so any tract or block group or zip code below 100 is going to be below the national average. And conversely, anything above 100 is going to be above the national average. Then I'm going to click on there. And remember, this is our study area right here. So, okay, right away I see this legend over here. And, okay, the darker colors they're more prone to taking 3 or more round trips. Okay. And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Income and et cetera. Lots of reasons we could talk about. Okay. And remember here, remember what Tom was showing with the filter? We can actually filter and just go to 100 over here and say, oh, just those neighborhoods are maybe where I want to focus. Okay, but can we change the colors? Can we change the way that the data is classified? Yes, we can do all that. We don't have time to do that, but explore. Pause the video and explore on your own. Okay, that's great. I'm going to add one more variable. One more variable, and that is, what about pets? So I'm going to back up like Kylie was showing you, back to the main search area, pets. Where do people actually own pets? Again, talk with the students about where does the data come from. Look at the granularity here. More than 2 dogs and more than 2 cats. Now again, students, they oftentimes, almost universally, love digging into this because they know, oh, who buys convenience store lottery tickets, who goes to fast food establishments, etc. But I'm going to just focus again on more than 2 dogs. That's really my specialty. I love those pooches. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say index once again, and then click on the variable. And now this is where the default way that these colors and symbols are chosen, you can override. If you don't like this, you can completely customize this. But in the interest of time, I'm going to take the defaults here because I actually like the way it's shown here, because the darker color is the travel, took 3 or more round trips by plane. The circle size is the, again, index, more prone to owning 2 or more dogs. So what I'm aiming for is the dark color and a big circle. Does that make sense? A dark color and a big circle. I can see some really interesting patterns in Kansas City, for example, right now. Okay. Now, one more thing, folks. I'm really interested in finding out, hey, I'm probably not the only person that has come up with this idea. So one more thing that I could map here would be, I'm going to create maps. We've seen color-coded maps. Tom showed you the smart mapping search, the business and facilities search. So I've used this with students. They have a mental map of all the high school students, especially of the fast food restaurants around their high school. Where can I get to in 5 minutes and be back by the time the bell rings, if they've got an open campus? And so, you know, having them map the florists versus the fast food versus the check cashing places in their community is really powerful. Why do certain businesses cluster and why do certain businesses are dispersed? I love that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and say, okay, what kind of facility? Well, what about kennel? Let's search on that. The search term really matters here. Okay, I've got some. I can search by community. I can search by industry description. I don't care about medical facilities for pets. All I care about is pet boarding and kennels. Notice that you've also got the standard industry classification and also the NAICS, which is another kind of classification. You can search by, get really granular and search by the code. But I'm just going to say only here. If I say only, it's only going to give me the pet boarding, sitting, and kennels in this area. Okay, so I'm going to say only. I can also filter it on the number of employees, and et cetera, but I'm not going to do that. And then I've got a custom symbol that I actually uploaded from my computer of a little dog because it wasn't in the default symbol set. So you can do that in many of our tools, right? So I've got a little dog symbol, and that looks good. Now, I don't want to cluster the points. You see what it's doing on the map here, right, folks? You've got a 2 and a 5 there because it's clustering them. So that just means in this zone with 5, I've got 5 kennel services right around there. I don't want to cluster them. I actually want to know where all of these things are located. Oh, okay. So now I'm going to say next, and then I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Great. Wouldn't it be grand to have a legend? You've got some tools on the right side. Kylie explored some of those with you. Okay, let's scoot this over just as a reminder. I've got my kennels here. I've got my round trips, my travel, and my preponderance for owning dogs. Interesting. So I see something that is very intriguing here, and that is there's a couple of darker circles up here toward downtown, and there's not that many kennels right in there, so I'm going to zoom in one more time and do one additional thing before we close. and that is I'm going to select a couple of these. Okay. I love these names for these places. Dog's World of Fun. What's not to love? Now I'm going to create buffers. This is another nice teachable moment. If I created rings, right, I asked the students, what shape are these things going to be? And they answer, oh, they're going to be rings. They're going to be circles of distances, miles or kilometers. But I want drive time. This is another teachable moment because you can ask students, who would be willing to travel 5 minutes to a convenience store, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then change the kind of store. So we thought we'd hit the big time here in Colorado a couple years ago when we got our first IKEA, right? It's the only one in the state. There's one of them. People are willing to travel for hours to go to one of these places, but not so for a pet sitting business probably. So I'm going to set the drive time to 3, 5, and 7 minutes because one of my pets doesn't like to ride in the car all that long. So I want to keep it pretty simple and short. And then ask the students, what shape is this going to be, right? It is going to depend on the traffic. It's going to depend on the lights. It's going to depend on the street network and the terrain in an area that you're doing. So I've got the drive time, 3, 5, and 7 minutes. And now what I have is, this is fascinating. I have this zone where I can say, okay, these 2 establishments, this is the area. So I'm going to maybe, not right now because we don't have time, but I can do this for a couple of others and figure out if there's any holes inside Kansas City Metro where it's more than 7 minutes away from an existing kennel and people are willing to, people travel frequently and they have more than 2 dogs. And then one last thing here is that just like with Kylie, okay, I can generate an infographic for that particular area, okay? So we're going to go ahead and save that. Okay, very good. So we've extended it a little bit, but I just want to talk about one last thing here. So here's our infographic for our drive time for the 2 areas that we're interested in. Fascinating. Okay, one last thing, and that is, Kylie touched on this a bit, and so did Charlie at the beginning, the connectedness of these tools. So I could, right here under Share Results, create a story map to talk about what variables I chose and my proposed site for my kennel. I can create a PDF or a static image from here, and then probably the most powerful is I can actually share this to an ArcGIS web map. Why would I want to do that? Because then I could run additional tools, as you saw with the analysis mapping hour episode, inside ArcGIS Online. Okay, so I've got some power here that hopefully is interesting, but it also shows it's nice to be able to do all this in this one single tool. All right, thanks. Over to you all.
Well, thanks, Joseph. That was cool. And I've been paying attention to the display going on here, but I also have my phone nearby. And what I get to do, I get to show the mobile app. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to say, let me go into my Business Analyst app. Now I'm already signed in, and I can sign in using my same credential. And there's me. There's my dot. But I can go searching. Now, why would we have a tool like this? Oh, wow. I've got a couple of dots on my map here. I was exploring here and doing a little checking about my home area and Tom's home area. Let me go into my home area here. And this is actually the school that I used to teach at in St. Paul. And let's see, what can I do here? I've got a tool that allows me, oh, really? I can play with the different base maps? Wow, I've got the whole collection of base maps here in my device. Oh, it's looking at sort of roughly where I am. That's a different street. It's vaguely nearby where I am right now. But if I just said, I want to be here, I've done what Joseph did, and I have kind of pre-packaged in here. Yesterday, I was taking a look at doing a 1 mile radius, a buffer around my old school, and I thought, gee, I wonder what I've got access to here. And if I look at this, I see 3 dots. Wow. I can delete this site, I can edit the site, I can take a photo, I can compare this, so I could do a sort of a, here, just on my little mobile device, I can do a comparison of one place or another. Run a report. What kind of a report? Classic reports and infographics. You mean on my phone, I can get one of those infographics that Joseph was talking about and Kylie was showing, and Tom was mentioning different kinds of infographics? Really? I want to do a Tapestry profile. What is this Tapestry thing that I hear about? The Tapestry segmentation, Esri's demographics team have organized the country. They've looked at all kinds of characteristics, and they've divided the country into neighborhood types. When you think about a neighborhood, people of a particular set of characteristics kind of hang out in a local area. Or think of it the other way around, people in one location tend to have similar kinds of characteristics. And people may have those characteristics, that collection of characteristics, in different places around the country. There are roughly 65, 68, something like that, different types of communities, the way our demographics team has organized it, and they call this a tapestry. People in this particular area have a certain kind of set of characteristics here. And I can come in and take a look at this and explore the different tapestry segments. The most common, here is Gen X urban. That is almost 50% of this area. Maybe some upscale avenues, maybe some middle ground people. And okay, so Gen X urban, if I tap that, I can learn more. Up in the top left corner here, I just want to say I want to learn more, and it's going to take me to one of these life mode. I'm going to see if I can get back to where I was. There we go. And so I can do all kinds of different explorations in here and see a whole set of characteristics. If I'm out at a meeting with somebody, and back when we used to be able to travel, this was how I ended up using this tool a lot, was I'd be at a meeting and somebody would say, okay, we're right here. And I say, well, let's learn about the neighborhood here. Sets of characteristics that you can use to explore. And oh, by the way, you can also integrate the data that you might have in your ArcGIS Online organization. So let's see. Tom and I were working on a project in one of the early episodes, Kansas and Missouri map. Can I recall that Kansas and Missouri map? Tom, I think it was looking at population of Kansas and Missouri at a county level. I can come back in here and explore this and see the neighborhoods that are in here and maybe come in and find different sets of information. So there are all kinds of ways that you can work with these tools. One of the magic elements of GIS is that each individual tool by itself has a tremendous amount of power. But as you start adding other tools in your tool belt, you get more and more powers. You're compounding the powers because you can take advantage of the powers of each individual device, each individual piece of software, each individual set of data. There's so many things that you can do as you work with these tools. So the neat little mobile app here is a very powerful piece to be able to get into exploring data. So the students who say, I don't have anything but my phone when I go home. We don't have anything else. Well, look what they can play with. Look what they can get into exploring. And all they need is an internet connection and phone and their login to be able to work with a whole bunch of data, to open up a project, to go in and explore an individual map, to go in and play with some of the content that somebody might be working in a project, a team, to work on some things. Your imagination can run wild with all of these tools. All right, I'm going to stop there. And do a quick review. Looking at Business Analyst and Community Analyst, a web-based tool for somebody that is working on a particular single focused mission. I don't want to be a GISer. I just want to work on my thing that I want to do. And I've got access to all of these different elements in here. Well, within those, you got to explore infographics. You've got access to all kinds of reports. You got that whole concept of an index. If the rest of the country, the whole country is at this level, where are these areas, above or below? How far above and below? And the Tapestry segmentation, we're going to have some resources that you're going to want to explore. That Tapestry data, you can run into it in all kinds of tools. You'll see Tapestry mentioned. It's really interesting. The smart map search, and even just working with an individual layer of data, and then these study sites that you can work with. And then one of my personal faves, the portable power that you have with these mobile apps. Now, I mentioned that we've got some resources here. You can find a lot of power just by going to the Business Analyst product site at the Esri website. So if you just go to esri.com/businessanalyst, you'll see resource pages for blogs. You'll see a bank of videos. You'll see quick link outs to lessons that are over on the Learn site. You'll see a link to the documentation so that you can say, I just want to read and understand, how do I work with this? It's very powerful there. And as part of this, the Tapestry segmentation is called out there. And so if you just go to esri.com/tapestry, you can read all about it, or you can go in and say, hey, I want to look at this zip code lookup. I just want to quickly play with this. What's my community like? And here's a bunch of data. And if somebody says, I don't understand what it is that you're doing with all of this data, when you say, hey, what was the zip code where you were born? And walk through and say, or where does one of your cousins live? What's the zip code there? And explore the community. Understand the patterns and the relationships that represent the countryside. And this two-sided poster of all of these different tapestry segments, you can go in and say, I want to see a poster. It's a PDF. You can say, I want to see that poster on my computer screen, and zoom in and explore, and then flip it over essentially and understand what are the characteristics of each of these individual segments. It's just so fun to play with. And people make important decisions on the basis of the things that they're seeing there. So remember that if you want to talk about this, the Mapping Hour chat room is a great place to do that. And if you go over on the right-hand side, you'll see the ArcGIS blog. It's actually, if you click on this one, it will take you right to the business analyst elements of the ArcGIS blog. Okay, we've been through now 3 sets of 5 classes, 3 sets of 5 episodes. Remember, back in episodes 1 through 5, we were working with just the fundamentals. And if you think all the way back then, it was just the basics. How do I do something focused? And how can I use GIS to do some academic content? In episodes 6 through 10, we're expanding that universe that is the ArcGIS Online framework. We added in different kinds of data, and we did publishing, and we took a look at some of the magical data set collections that exist in the ArcGIS Online framework. That is the living atlas, that set of curated, authoritative data. And then we did some analysis and added in apps and got into sharing. Well, what have we done in these episodes, 10 through 15? We're looking at even farther out into more tools on the tool belt to add more tools here. The field data collection apps and the little attachment viewer web app template that we used to display some of these things, and then the editable feature layer creation that you could use then in Collector or Quick Capture. And last time working with dashboards, and this time with business analysts and community analysts. Where are we going then? We're going to get into story maps and projects and team favorites. But that's starting next time. That's it for this hour. Thanks everyone for being with us. And we got 5 more hours to go to cover all of that. So exciting. That's it. Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.